People, Deluded, I'm back again. Now, I assume by Monday, Lucas Torreira will be officially announced as an Atletico Madrid player on a loan with an option to buy for 22 million. But until that happens, you know, it is what it is. I'll probably do another video on him within this time. But for what it is, Charles Watts, worksforgoal.com, has said Lucas Torreira said his goodbyes at London Coley today. He is due to travel to Madrid in the next 24 hours to complete his medical and finalise his loan. Fabrizio Romano went on to say Atletico and Arsenal have reached an agreement for Lucas Torreira, a loan until June 2021 with a buy option, no obligation to buy. Medicals are scheduled, personal terms okay. Only when Athletic will sell one player, in brackets negotiations for Herrera and Lamar, they'll be allowed to sign Torreira. Now, Thomas Lamar has been linked with a move away. He's actually been linked with Leipzig. Julian de Guzman has said he's a quality player, but we can't afford the outlay to take him on loan. Herrera has been linked with a move away from Atletico. So it does seem like when there's movement, they will say something. I mean, you know, could you sell Partey and then announce Torreira for Arsenal? Obviously, at base level, to fans anyways, I don't know the inner dealings and whatnot, but to fans, it does look like you lot got bullied because, you know, they won't... I know football shouldn't be a pride thing, but if they won't give you Partey or try and find a compromise for Partey, why are you compromising for Torreira? I know, excluding Torreira, we need to raise funds, and if Arteta don't want him and the rest of it, it makes sense, but it just feels a bit funny selling one player and this team won't give us another. Hopefully, there's positivity on the Partey front. To be fair with Simeone, I would do the same thing. I wanted us to have the option of playing Partey and Torreira. There might be games like the Liverpool game. We might set up three at the back. You know, we might go in there with a three-man midfield or something. It might be shortly tweak it, but just say we went there defensively. We had a Partey, we had a Torreira, and you put in one of us, a Ceballos, an Aouar or something. It might not be the most glamorous, but that's dynamic for me. And I want Partey to sign for this club as much as I want Aouar, because Partey's got a lot of great technical qualities that will make him stand out. He can pass the ball, he can carry it, but for what I want to see is that composing box-to-box figure. The longer we don't have that, we're significantly weaker. And I will have to say, I hope Arsenal have a plan, because letting Torreira go, whether I rate him or not, which I do, you know, you've let a player who I'd describe as a ball winner of sorts depart. Partey's box-to-box, but he can win a ball. He's not at this club. Who is the ball winners in this team? We can force it, you know, and then they can retrieve a ball, but is that hit with him? I'll leave you lot to answer. Not only that, we've got less bodies in midfield. Guendouzi's linked with a move away as well. So I hope Arsenal have a plan. I hope Arsenal have a structure in place. You know, I hope they have plan Bs, because Monday is the deadline. We need to get a move on. What can I say, man? It's been a weird one for Torreira. You know, at the end of the day, the key one for me is it's a loan with no obligation. So again, this must mean he really wanted to leave, or he's really not in Arsenal's plans and whatnot. You know, if it's not an option to buy, again, I do think he will make the move permanently. I'd imagine in a year he'd be comfortable there. But from an Arsenal perspective, playing devil's advocate, you know, if they have an option, again, it cripples it a bit. But if it's not an official option, which we have to wait for official confirmation, and not an obligation, you know, he might be worth 22 million, he could be worth 30, 40. And I do think Torreira is going to go to Atletico, stay there for a couple of years and move to a bigger club, honest to God. I can't blame Torreira for leaving, because, you know, he was the talk of the town in 2018. 2 years later, he's not in the team. You know, he played no real part in the FA Cup final. You know, he's not seen as a tactical fit. And I do think he wanted to leave, because I do think he hasn't adapted. But, you know, if you're going from not being a tactical fit, not starting for Arsenal, who are not in the Champions League, and a team is offering you Champions League football, a team which play a system which suits your way of playing, you know, and you could be central to that, and you've got a fellow South American compatriot, and obviously Spanish way of life is more aligned, and there's a whole bag of South American man in that team for him, you know, he'd integrate better, you'd have a better time, you're playing Champions League football. I can't not respect it. I just hope Arsenal have a plan. I wanted Torreira to stay. I mean, I love Torreira, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. I just want to see who comes in now, and I don't think Arteta's an idiot. You know, you're not going to weaken your side unless you're bringing someone in. But the more the days go on, the longer I don't see any confirmation about this Aouar, about this Partey. You're now seeing Jorginho on loan links. Apparently, he's third on our list of targets. I don't know. I don't see how Jorginho helps us, not in the sense of he's a bad player. I think, you know, he could compete for Xhaka's spot. He could start with Xhaka, even though I don't think that would be the best of options. You know, that midfield would be good on the ball, terrible without it, terrible in the transition, both going forward and backwards. I just hope we have a plan, people. All I want to do is see 10 10 midfielders. 2 midfielders arrive at this club. A box-to-box composing figure and somebody who's able to try and break the lines and wants the ball and wants to do that sort of stuff, because our midfield options are weak. On paper, Torreira is now gone. That leaves us with Guendouzi, who Arteta can say until he's blue in the face, you know, people can be reintegrated, and it could be, but the writing's probably on the wall for Guendouzi. If he isn't gone now, he will be gone in January unless something happens. So you've got Guendouzi on paper who's going to play no part really and truly. Torreira's gone. That leaves you with what? El Nene, Ceballos, who's technically not your player. El Nene, Ceballos, who's technically not your player, as I just said. You know, Joe Willock, who's very much hot and cold. Mohamed El Nene and Granit Xhaka. With all due respect to all 5 of those, and I might even be missing one out. Did these inspire you? Does these make you believe you can get top 4? And I'm pretty sure as much as Arteta believes in his players, gives trust, speaks in the press conferences, he knows deep down in his heart, specifically midfield, you know, our defence is well documented. They're not perfect, they're improving, but it's well documented the problems in defence. Nobody speaks about the midfield, you know. The defence has to hold their hands up, but plenty of times our midfield hasn't been there. Midfield is central to, it's all central to everyone. It's very important in the modern day, and we don't have the modern day midfield, you know. These players, when you look at them, once again, in isolation, they're not terrible players. Collectively, you know, you're having a hard time really picking the best combo. For me, it's Xhaka and Ceballos, and that doesn't really scream dynamism, that doesn't really scream goals and assists, that doesn't really scream dominating the tempo of a game, you know. We ain't got that. That's why I wanted Torreira and Partey and Aouar, you know, because you'd be able to play Partey and Torreira if you want to be a bit more still, and you can play around with different other things. We need better options, better variety in midfield, and I don't really, our midfield isn't inspiring to me. Like, you know, many people critique Chelsea's midfield. They get onto Jorginho, talk about Loftus-Cheek, Barkley's now gone, but there's different sort of ingredients there. I just see, I don't know what I see. I see a box-to-box attempt from Joe Willock. He's, again, hot and cold. El Nene is a decent player, but he's not exactly great at anything. And if you're honest with yourself, he's a squad player or should be out the door, potentially be out the door. You know, are we being forced to use him, or Arteta's being forced to use his former teammate? Because clearly we've struggled. You know, he didn't, Besiktas for every reason didn't want to make man permanent, didn't alert any other Turkish clubs. His agent has consistently said he's got interest from Premier League teams. Who's bidded for him? If Arteta said you're my guy and he don't want to leave, that's different. But who's bidded for him? You know, I can only go as a fan on what I see. Ceballos, you know, even if he plays amazing, which I want him to, and I like Ceballos, at the end of the day, there's a lot of question marks over him. He needs to refine what specific midfielder he wants to be, and needs to, I want to see a bit more IQ with his decision making. You know, I know you're a good player technically, I know you muck in, but you now need to be the difference maker. You need to, when everyone thinks of a game you've played, I'm thinking of Dani Ceballos. But regardless of, even if he does that, you know, barring a miracle, he could very much stay permanently, but he's not an Arsenal player on paper. So, you know, it is quite uninspiring, our midfield options, and our midfield, on top of everything, you will see the gaps. And if, for me personally, I'll always cheer the team on, I'll always back the team. I think regardless of who comes in, we have more to definitely make a meal of the top 4, try be in the fight for top 4 a bit longer. But in my heart, listen, I want to be wrong, people, and Monday's it's Friday now. Monday's a long way away in footballing terms, but I'm not going to lie to you, lot. You don't bring in a midfielder, 2 specifically. I don't believe in our ability to get top 4. I think we'll show good moments. I think we'll get closer than we did last year. But I believe ultimately we'll fall short, because I don't think the quality of the squad's there over a 38-game period to do the business. I don't think the squad's there to actually win the Europa League, you know, really and truly. I know we've got to the final. Listen, like I said, I want to be wrong. I hope to be wrong. I'll support my boys all the way. But what I can't do is sit here on my videos and lie to you lot and say, well, I honestly don't feel. I can only speak on what I feel, and that's it. My opinions can obviously change. If we bring man in and there's reason for optimism, there's reason. But I'm not going to lie, I have no sympathy for Arsenal if they don't conclude all the business, because it's well documented what we need to do. From last year, we knew we needed to move players on. We knew it was a priority. Obviously, COVID threw a spanner in the works and makes it difficult for most teams, but still, we knew it. We keep speaking about we have to be creative in the market and adapt to 3 different ways. I've heard all of that, but who's come in? Shout out for signing Gabriel. Cool, you brought in Willian. Marie and Suarez, they were here from January, but I'll include them in the summer transfers, because we knew it was going to happen. But with all due respect, apart from Gabriel, there's no inspired signing. I don't see who takes us to the next level. Gabriel will in time, William will chip in, but I don't see, you know, you bring in Partey, immediately you've upgraded your midfield. You bring in Aouar, regardless of if he's the finished article, immediately this midfield is improved. Do you get? Now, again, I don't want, like I keep saying in all my vids, Partey coming in doesn't mean we're going to dominate the midfield. He can't do it alone. It needs to be together with the system. The same way Gabriel, he's not going to, you know, cheer up all our defense, all our hopes. You know, he's not going to cheer up all our other defenders and make them play better. You know, he's not going to turn it over by himself. We need a system. We buy better players to do better things. It's like Liverpool. You think Van Dijk could go into that club and change defending by himself? There would be times, it would be like Koscielny at Arsenal, where Koscielny's not looking good because we've got a good system defensively, but he's putting out fires because he's playing with duds. Now, Van Dijk would still show his quality at Liverpool, but it was a thing where Liverpool, or specifically Klopp, understood I need to improve my team defensively. Collectively on the coaching ground, they clearly had an emphasis on improving that and changing their thinking. Then you bring in the Alissons and the Van Dijks to make the difference. Now, Arsenal are not at the same level as Liverpool, but I do think it's a thing where Arteta still got a lot of question marks for me personally, but you give him better players, he can do better things. I see what he wants to do with playing out from the back end of midfielders. I just don't feel these midfielders that are playing on a regular basis are quite of the level to execute it to the standard to try and get us top four. I want to be wrong. I believe all of these options in midfield could be squad players. I just don't believe in their credentials to start on a regular basis. That's just me as a fan. Like I said, you know, I support the boys all the way. We don't bring players in. We have to use what we have and we have to ride with it. But, you know, the writing will be on the wall. You know, you can't keep doing the same things and expecting things to change. You can't cut corners and expecting things to change. I know the market is difficult to move in, but I've got no sympathy. We know what we needed to do. Out of all the top 6 teams, you know, Spurs are in a bit of trouble, but they've signed 6 players, you know. There's optimism. They've brought back Bale, whether he does the old school Bale stuff or not. They've brought in Bale. They've just signed a striker. They know they needed a backup striker. They've brought in, you know, Doherty, shrewd addition, Højbjerg. They've done a couple things. What has Arsenal done to address these areas? Now, shout out to Saliba coming in. He looks to be going out on loan. We look like we had 2 new centre-halves. In theory, we've only got 1 now with Gabriel. Fair enough, Arteta's getting man playing better. But you've got that. Fair enough, you brought in Willian to complement the options, and he'll be a bit hot and cold, but I think he'll prove his worth in the future, in my opinion. You know, past that, midfield was the biggest area for improvement, and Arteta was a midfielder. This is why I'm looking at midfield the most, because when you was that position, you look at it differently. Like, Arteta knows the whole squad is important, but you as a midfielder, you can't, you know, he was 2 types of midfielders. He played certainly slightly further forward in his career early on. Then as it was winding down, he worked at the base, sort of a defensive mid-row at Arsenal. You know, he knows what he wants from his defensive mids when they receive the ball in terms of positioning and obviously in the attacking sense. You know, there's no way Arteta can be a midfielder, you know, and see that this midfield is good enough and have any reservations. You know, that's why I want to see the midfield improve the most, because he's improved us defensively, and obviously he's a manager, he has to deal with the whole collective, but he was a midfielder. It's a bit like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I was looking at him, you know, surely you've got to bring in a backup striker. He said he wanted to play Greenwood and that, but I said, sure, you as a striker, you know the different sorts of strikers you need in your team. You can have Greenwood, you can have Martial, you can have Rashford, and they've all proved their worth. But you needed to bring in a target man, someone that, you know, if you're selling Lukaku, you need a physical presence. Not that his hold-up play is the best in the world, but you needed a striker that was a bit different. Lo and behold, 6 months later, he's realised and he's brought in Igalo, or whenever he did. I could have been wrong about the 6 months thing. But when these my point is as well, when these managers played a certain position, I personally look at them a bit funny and say, oh, cool. If that area is not addressed, then it is what it is. It's like Pep. You know, if Pep never had a certain midfield, you'd have to ask questions. You was a midfielder. You know what's needed of a midfielder. You know what you would have liked to have done in midfield. You know a team that if you was managing when you was playing, what you wanted to see. So I can't help but not believe Arteta knows that this midfield needs to improve. He knows that if we get better technicians going that way, going at the opponent's box, attack is a form of defence. If we can hold on to the ball better, create attacking situations better, you know, same way, being on the front foot is a way of defending. You've got the ball, your opponent can't do anything. But at the same time, you need that party, you need that dynamism. You need to be able to recover the ball, retrieve it, and cover ground early. And I don't think we can do that enough. Now, granted, the system, Xhaka looks better in it. As I said, El Nene's taking his chances when it's came. 5, 6s out of 10 sort of thing. Joe Willock's hot and cold. To be fair, I'm having my doubts about Joe Willock. You know, I'll back my Highland players the way, but I don't think he's really seizing his opportunities right now. There's also, you know, the chance, I guess, to play Maitland-Niles there, but are we all going to agree that it's probably just a left-back and right-back thing for him? Again, Maitland-Niles has been spoken of being able to play in that role in Arteta. So again, you know, if Guendouzi leaves or if Guendouzi stays and you've got Maitland-Niles and you've only brought in one of Partey and Aouar, do we have to be a bit creative? You know, do we drop Joe Willock back and say you're playing in the 8 position now? You're no longer doing the 10 thing. Maitland-Niles, we say, all right, cool, you're going to be used as a fullback, but you're getting your chance in midfield. Do you see what I'm saying? You know, retain the faith in the likes of El Neni and hope that his uptake in form can prove doubters wrong. I back all these players. I would like all these options to happen, but for me, you don't bring in 2 midfielders, you don't get top 4. You bring in 1 minimum, I have a small bit of chance of hope. But in relation to Torreira, it is what it is, man. In 2018, you know, he was proclaimed the defensive mid we needed since Gilberto Silva, and for whatever reason, it's not worked out. It is what it is. You know, good luck at Atletico Madrid. I'll do another vid when it's officially confirmed, but that's where we're at, people. And also, in fact, I really should just speak about it now, really, shouldn't I, people? I did think I saw Rudy Garcia now. Lyon are playing on Sunday, and if you pay attention, the language is changing. Rudy Garcia himself said, Aouar, when asked about Aouar and Depay potentially facing Marseille on Sunday, he said, for the moment they belong to Lyon, so they are likely to be in the squad on Sunday. Now, we can't get caught up on words, people, but for the moment, now, Depay's been linked with moves all summer. Aouar, you know, is PSG and Juventus now, and obviously Arsenal. So, yeah, man, and apparently the deadline, the self-imposed deadline that their president Ulas implemented, apparently it's now been pushed back to Saturday. Do I think Aouar is going to be announced as an Arsenal player in the next 24 hours? I would love it. But to me as a fan with no insider knowledge, I don't think so. I think if anything, we're going to see it on deadline day. Pardon me. Like I said, all I want to do is see these players brought in. You can't bring in Partey and Aouar. Bring me your plan Bs. That's it. All I want to do is start the season and say, I've got my box-to-box dynamic midfielder. I've got a midfielder that I know wants the ball and wants to feed Aubameyang and try and get assists and do all of these sort of things and whatnot. And another thing, man, if we go with a 3-man midfield, you've got 2 technicians there. That, you know, people can stay further up. It's like Ozil. Do you remember many games Ozil had to drop deep? When Santi's there, he can stay further up the field, and him and Alexis can do his thing. You know, better players will bring out the best in the players that we can move forward with. You know, it is what it is in that regards, man. I can't really add more. So hopefully there's some positive news, but you know, we'll have to see come Monday or come the coming days. Is what it is, man. People, you lot know it's always a pleasure speaking to you lot. DG, I'm out.